Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling full-time trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials across the world. I've met many people during my career and have spent many hours on stage and off with these musicians, talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on the weekends with friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you. Hi there, this is Dan Zeilinger with Trad Jazz Today, and my guest is somebody that I've actually known a lot longer than I thought I had. I realized that I haven't seen him or the musicians that I met him with for a long time. It's hard for me to get my head around that because my years with the festival circuit were so full and so fulfilling that I don't realize that it's been over 20 years since I was actually doing that part of my life. And here he is, the former leader of the Wood Nickle Jazz Band, which is where I met him, and the current trombonist with Fulton Street, and has done a pile of other stuff in his life with his trombone. And I call him a friend, Mr. Bob Williams. Is that
Hey, Dan.
Is that accurate description for you there?
Yeah, except for the friend part. But no, I'm kidding, of course.
Well, that's okay. I've been accused of a few things in my life, and you never know. So, was it true? Were you born in Modesto?
Modesto, California, born and bred. Yep.
Wow.
For the most part. Went to Thomas Downey High School in Modesto. Yes.
And a good friend of mine from Modesto, obviously, is Margaret Squires.
Oh yeah, of course.
And we were old friends. And her father was, of course, ran the band in the area for a long time. And I actually wrote a composition. I wrote an arrangement of Shenandoah for the Modesto Clarinet Choir.
Oh my goodness!
Which I put on my resume, obviously, because everybody knows Modesto, and it's a hotbed of musical artists.
I didn't know Margaret's dad worked there. I was born there. We moved away when I was about in, let's say, 5th grade, to Dinuba, of all places, which is,
wow.
I know.
How do you spell that?
Dinuba. It's the Raisinland, USA.
Okay.
And it's down about, I would say, 40 miles southeast of Fresno, kind of between Fresno and Three Rivers, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And then we moved back to Modesto when I was a freshman in high school.
I'm surprised you didn't get grabbed up by High Sierra while you were there, but.
Yeah, that was before I knew about any of that stuff.
But yeah, I've interviewed a lot of your friends, and a lot of them haven't dropped yet, like Howard Miata.
Sure.
I've had a chance to interview, and a few of the people in that area, I'm still working on a few, which Bob is helping me with. So that's kind of cool. Great. Yeah, I saw that you went to Thomas Downey High. When I first saw that, I was surprised because there's a Downey High School here in the city of Downey.
In Downey. That's why I always say Thomas Downey, because I know about that.
I know. My son worked with her. My son actually worked at their competing high school down here, but that's beside the point.
Oh, wow.
And then you went to Cal State.
I went to UCLA for a year, and then didn't do school for a few years. And then when I was, I guess, around 30, I finished college at Sac State.
What was your area of education at when you went to UCLA? Was it composition or trombone? Or?
It was going to be music education, but I was in the band down there and all that stuff. The marching band, and but then when I got back here, I got a more practical degree, which was, well, for me, a more practical degree, which was business administration, so I could get my lovely day job.
But more importantly, you learned how to play conquest.
Conquest. Oh, I guess I did. I guess I must have. Kelly James was the director down there. It was one of his last years, but he was gosh, I haven't thought about him in years. He was kind of a institution down there.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you know this. My day gig, is actually I'm a marching band instructor, and I was involved in the drum and bugle corps world for a long time.
I saw that on earlier interviews. I was going to ask you if you ever ran into Gary Runston from Modesto. He did. If you did any of the drum and bugle corps up here, he had I can't remember. Anyway, he was really into that. But he's from Modesto High School. He was my private instructor for most of my.
Oh, wonderful! Well, you know that whole Bay Area, of course, between Santa Clara Vanguard and the Blue Devils,
yeah.
and Oakland and the Raiders, and all these different drum corps came out of the area.
Yeah.
And not only good drum corps, but national champion drum corps.
Oh, fantastic stuff.
So a lot of brass players from the area.
Yeah. I never appealed to me. I honestly, I hated marching band. I was the drum major when I was in high school, and that's possibly the only thing that saved my chops from banging around. Never much care. I never understood why people wanted to do drum and bugle corps. I know people that did it were very, very passionate about it, and you got to admire that, you know.
Yeah, like I said, I marched next to the Canstles. I know all the Canstel boys. Zig and Jack, and their father, of course. And Wayne Bergeron was a drum corps guy.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, he marched next to me with the Velvet Knights for a year and a half or 2 years. Every time I bring it up, he goes, shh, but you know.
Now, were you playing the one-fingered?
No. They were actually piston rotor, and I was actually a trumpet player at the time.
And you're playing trumpet with the corps.
All the way through college, I was actually a high note lead player.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I could see that.
And then I met Dan Barrett and Brian Shaw and Charlie Warren and all those guys, and they converted me into being the dark recesses of trad. So.
Yes, and you were with the Southern Comfort Band, I heard.
Right.
Which was well, of course, I know Dan reasonably well, and I know Brian, and geez, I remember. I never heard that band. I don't know if you guys have any recordings or anything, but from what I heard, it was a pretty amazing band.
Yeah, Southern Comfort actually made one recording that I found on eBay for $15, and that was Dan Barrett, Brian Shaw, Mark Curry, Bob Reitmeyer.
Mark Curry.
Tom Liston was on, I mean, not Tom, but Bill Liston. Howard Alden was our banjo player.
Right.
Along with Denny Hardwick, actually, because we traded out personnel every so often. And Ed Slauson on drums.
Okay. I know Mark Curry. I've forgotten that he was in that band, but he lives up this way, and I've done a few gigs with him. What a great guy.
Oh, and yeah, just a great guy is a good word for it. In fact, I'm trying to get him to do an interview, and I'm trying to get Rusty to do an interview.
That'd be great.
Rusty's being reluctant. But then I want to do a watch party with the old Jazz Minor Band all together.
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh, it would be fun. But I'm here to interview you.
Oh, okay.
Now, of course, you remember the days when I was down standing at the foot of the stage, just loving the band. You guys were quite entertaining and close to being rock stars for your time.
Yeah.
With the festival circuit.
Yeah. I think we were relatively young. And I know that we were somewhat irreverent, which some people liked and some people really didn't like. Some of the more traditional people really kind of disliked us, but those weren't the ones necessarily buying the tickets. We were pretty popular among the because we had a besides the music, there was some funniness. There was the marital dynamic, the Ricky and Lucy thing that I think had there were some hijinks on stage, and I think that had a lot to do with why we were fairly successful, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and not to mention Bonnie is just a kick. In fact, she's going to be coming on Thursday to do an interview.
Oh, terrific!
And yeah, just a wonderful group, great personalities, and a wonderful band. I've already interviewed David.
I saw that, absolutely.
Johnson, and that was a lot of fun,
Yeah, Dave's been a buddy of mine for 30 years, since I started playing in Sacramento. Bonnie was at the very first person that hired me to do a trad band was Gene Berthelsen, and you probably don't remember him, but he ran the festival for a couple of years before his death. He had a band called the Katzenjammers. And the first rehearsal I did with the Katzenjammers was also Bonnie's first rehearsal. So we were both just thrown into the deep end of the pool at the same time. And then we've been through bands together our whole,
Now, didn't Mike Malroy come out of that band?
Who?
Or
Matt Prine.
Matt Prine, rather.
No,
Yes, that's what I meant.
not out of the Cats and Jammers, but he did work. Gene Berthelsen ran Matt's youth band, which I think he mentioned, the Jazz, not the Jazz Miners, the other one. But he was in a band with Otis Morning, who I know you know,
Right.
and Gene Berthelsen, I think, was one of their first directors. But I met Matt with Stan Mark's band that we were in, right subsequent to right after playing in Gene's band for a couple of years.
Wow. Boy, I also interviewed Mike Vax here recently.
Oh, is that so?
Speaking of guys. Now, just to let you know, and I sort of mentioned this in most of my interviews, that the title Trad Jazz that I use for this show isn't necessarily because I only want to talk about trad jazz, but
Sure.
it's kind of a hook for people to come on and find out about the people who play classic jazz and early jazz styles. And that includes people like I just interviewed John Van Houten, who of course
I
is,
don't know that name.
he's god of the studio tuba players now. If you've seen a movie in the past 20 years, he was the tuba player on them.
Okay.
But he and I met on a water style band when I was playing cornet and he was playing tuba back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Oh, wow.
And then he stepped away from traditional jazz. But it's fun to talk to him. And so anyway, I'm just letting you know that.
Music's music, music is music.
And then I may say that to everybody. I've had a couple people I've been trying to get to interviews that say, well, I'm not really involved with trad jazz anymore. And that's not the point of the show. So
Right.
Great. Well, I just wanted to clear that up. I hope you don't mind.
No, I play in some rock bands up here too. I play all kinds of different stuff. So I'm
Yeah,
not
me
ashamed.
too.
But I did take my Ted Nugent poster down and put the Jack Teagarden one up just to get the scene just right.
Well, I'm not going to take my Kiss poster down, so there. Yeah. So how early did you start playing, and what instrument did you start on?
It's been all I can do, Dan, to remember the slide positions on my trombone. It's the only instrument I've ever really played. I've fiddled around with a couple other things, a little piano. I wanted to, in between 4th and 5th grade in summer school, down in Dinuba, as a matter of fact, we had an opportunity to join the band, and I really wanted to join the band, and it wasn't even a question for me. As soon as I could do it, I did. And I remember trying to decide between the tenor sax and the trombone. And I think, in retrospect, it's because I like that tenor voice. My favorite stringed instrument is the cello. That kind of that sort of tenor voice. But I realized, pretty wise, I thought, for my age, I realized that there'd probably be a lot less competition on the trombone than there would be on the saxophone. So I elected to play the trombone.
Were your parents musical?
My parents were. I've got a biological father and mother who both were in the choir, and my stepfather also in the choir at Thomas Downey High School, as a matter of fact.
Oh.
I think my mom was in the first graduating class, the first person to have gone 4 years at Downey High School. So, but other than that, we didn't listen to music at home, certainly not jazz. But my mother was a great piano player. In fact, when I did the, they had the solo ensemble festivals in high school where you pick a solo and you play it for judges and stuff. And I did some really difficult stuff, including the Hindemith Sonata, which is one of the most difficult trombone solos, but the piano part is probably the most spectacular part of that. And my mom just nailed it. And it was pretty amazing. She was a great reader, has played in churches her whole life, but no jazz. She's scared to death of jazz.
So are you telling me that she was responsible for your good score in solo ensemble?
No question. Absolutely. In case she happens to listen, I would surely want to get that plug in.
Yeah, Mom. I'm sure that's what happened, actually. That's cool. It's very rare that kids start on trombone in 4th grade.
Yeah, that's usually where they put the crappy treble players. Like when there's the last 15, the bottom 15 treble players, they usually stick over on trombone. But no, I picked it. I meant to. I did it on purpose.
Did you instantly have seventh position?
Yeah, I was always kind of tall, reasonably tall. I had to kind of lean my shoulder in a little bit, but I got it. And there's only a couple notes down there anyway, so it's not that big a deal.
In one of my interviews, I mentioned the fact that I actually was made to teach a third grade band for a couple of years, and and that's early to start kids on. The trombone players can barely get past fifth position,
Yeah.
and the clarinet player's fingers fall in the tone holes. But
Right.
it's it's kind of crazy. Cool. And so when you got to when you got to Thomas Downey High, did they have a jazz program there?
Here's the thing. The director at Thomas Downey High School, since the beginning of the school, and this had been like 20 years, was a man named Ken Farrell, who was legendary. He was a devotee of in Michigan. There's a Fennell, I think, in Michigan, and he was all into marching band and regimentation. And the year I was there, by freshman year, it was his last year. It was the year he was retiring. And he had a jazz band. We called it a stage band then. And he had to have it. He had it because he had to have it. And you could tell he just gritted his teeth. He hated it. He was really into symphonic stuff. He wrote the school's fight song. He wrote a lot of the music that we performed. And so we had a few jazz songs in the stage band. And he was such a oh my goodness, so picky. He wrote all the solos out, and he insisted that the players at the concerts play the perfectionist is the word I was groping for. He insisted that everybody play his written out solos. He did not want anybody improvising because it would have made it less than perfect.
Right.
And he couldn't have that. So later, though, we got a later director who wasn't nearly as much of a perfectionist, and that's when I got to do a little more solos, but it's stage band stuff. We never did any trad or any of that stuff.
How did you approach improvisation when you were young?
Honestly, I have this kind of a standing joke about I just moved my slide till I got to a good note and then stopped. But I think, I try to find the basic notes of the triad. Like we did the blues stuff, which is a nice thing to learn solos on. I just kind of fiddle my way around until I found a good note, and then I try to remember it for next time and just kind of go off there, make connecting notes, but starting with sort of tonic things,
Sure.
In a B flat, a B flat blues, I make sure and bang on the D flat a lot, hit that third or the A flat. Just kind of flailing around till I found something good, and then try to kind of remember it if I could.
I'm curious, as a teacher, I ask a lot of people how they approach jazz early on, and especially if they were studying to become educators.
Right.
I mean, I've heard things where they have the student play tonic every bar as they go through.
Yes.
Then second time add a second note, and into half notes, and the second time make it quarter notes or whatever. And that's an interesting way to approach it. But that's also when you learn if a student has a good enough ear to know when he's wrong.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've tried to do some of that stuff. I do. Dave Johnson probably mentioned I do I've been doing the new traditionalists with TNT, which is the youth band up here. The Sac Jazz Society has funded, and it is hard when kids aren't great improvisers to get them to focus on notes that are going to be sort of consonant, to start. But it's a tough thing to teach improvisation. You've got to listen. And that's something I don't think people do enough of. I don't do enough of it, listening to professionals and listening to historic recordings and just trying to land on good notes on strong measures, as best you can.
It's
until you can stray from that.
It's wonderful that you're involved with youth. I know that you're the director of the Sacramento Jazz Society, or one of the directors on the
kids,
board.
The youth bands, yeah.
And that's where a lot of kids get started. I was on staff for a while up in Mammoth Lakes.
Yes.
In fact, I was on the first staffs up there for the first 2.5 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, so many great players have come out of youth programs.
Oh, no kidding.
jazz camps, like the Sacramento one, for example. I mean, there are students now that are making their living, like Matt Perrine and the people who.
A lot of guys on Frenchman Street now are people that I taught at the camp, the Bill Dendel's camp. Before Bill Dendel was in charge of it, I taught it for a couple years. They used to get a professional, and then they get a local kind of guy. And I got to be the local guy a couple times, and that's where I met Dan Barrett, and we became good friends. And then I did a band with Howard Alden, who was there a couple times, and got to be friends with him. So, but there have been so many great musicians that have come out of those programs. It's people in New York that have come out of our programs. There's half the people on Frenchman Street now came from our camps, and you know, that's a testament to Bill Dendel, and it's a testament to the power that the people up here in Sacramento have always. I mean, they put a lot of emphasis on promoting kids and music, and not just trad, just any music.
Yep.
So we're really proud of that up here, and I think rightly so.
As you well should be. You know, on Bill's interview, he mentioned that he was walking back to the campground with a couple students, and one of them had an epiphany that it wasn't all about learning the music necessarily. You know,
right.
And that's a smart kid, and B, they're absolutely right. You know,
there's a lot to it. Absolutely. I do want to go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, please.
I was just going to say, when I do my kids band, we spend a lot of time on signals, on etiquette, on, you know, make sure I tell the leader, make sure they're throwing enough solos to the banjo player, and those sorts of things. It isn't just about the music. It's about, there's a certain, I think, etiquette and an ethos and a way to behave at a gig that you kind of need to learn. Or when you get thrown into, we all get thrown into situations with people we've never played with before. And you need to know how to do that, and best to do it without making all the mistakes that I've made over the years. Right.
You know, it's enlightening, and I know that you went through a similar experience when I was in Hungary for that appearance I did there. It was wonderful to get on stage with several musicians who didn't speak English at all, and all they had to do was turn around and say Dinah and throw down three fingers, and everybody knew what to do. And I tell that to my students, how wonderful that is, because it really is, in some senses, a international language.
Absolutely.
And I mean jazz, not just music in general, but jazz in particular is a direct connection.
It's so funny because to an audience, I've talked to a lot of people about that sort of thing. Because, you know, you have these festivals and they have these jams, or sometimes you walk into another set and, hey, come and sit in, play a tune. And the thing that people are really amazed by is how magic it seems. Like, how did you guys know what to do? How did you know when you took your turns, or how did you know how to end the song? And there's a sort of a subtle nonverbal communication that you acquire that's universal, just like the tune and the key. And people find it really fascinating, you know.
I find it fascinating still, and I do it. In fact, I started writing, I don't know if it's an art, what it'll turn out to be, but I started writing down my thoughts about that. And it seems like ESP at times.
Yeah, sure.
And not just to the audience, but even to me. When you can predict when somebody's going to take a hit, or how the background parts are going to go, or it's crazy at times.
Well, and you know, I think you sort of pick that up subconsciously, so you don't have to think about it. But you know, example I always think about is, like, if I'm playing with a trumpet player I'm familiar with and with whom I've played a lot, I know how he's going to end it, like a couple bars before the ending, and you can just kind of go along with it. And everybody sort of knows, and the drummer hits the kicks at the right time, and, you know, I'll do my big or whatever at the right, depending on, but those are certain unsaid things that we sort of pick up over time, and it's kind of neat. Speaking
of that 4-bar tag, I forgot who I was talking to. They were talking about the fact that they went and took a 4-bar tag like that, and the leader of the band at the time wasn't somebody who was a natural jazz musician. And because he didn't call that ending, he waved everybody off And I said, that's really weird because in the bands that I've played with, if one guy takes a 4-bar tag, everybody ends up taking a 4-bar tag after that
Of
individually,
course.
you know?
It's the collective, you know, you're trying to make everybody look good. You're not necessarily trying to do it right. You want everybody to look good. That's what being in a band is, you know?
Or you're trying to crack them up. It just depends on who you're playing with.
Sure.
So much of our time on stage, especially for people like I who rely on a lot of quotes at times,
Sure.
is just to raise a chuckle out of your fellow musicians while we're up there entertaining the crowd, you know?
Oh, sure.
Which I really enjoy. So
I'm afraid to do quotes because sometimes I can't get back to the tune.
I play quite often right now with Robbie Rhodes, and of course phenomenal player and a whole encyclopedia of history just within himself. But he'll go off on a quote, or he'll make up a bridge, or he'll try to make a key change transition and absolutely forget what tune we're in. And we've all done it. We've all done it.
Of course.
Especially if you play, 2 tunes back to back that have similar changes accidentally.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you find everybody finds themselves on the bridge from the previous song. And it's like,
I know. I've played with guys that look around and go, what tune are we playing? And it's like nobody knows. So we just somebody makes an executive decision and then we just pretend like we meant for that to happen.
And very rarely does the crowd catch on, but
right.
That's kind of not the point. So tell me about Fulton Street and who's the personnel now and what you've been doing with them.
Fulton Street, that's a band I always wanted to play with because they were kind of the classy kind of swing guys, with the blazers and stuff. But Ringwald got sick and he hasn't really been involved for a couple of years. Right now we've the band now has been Bob Secoy on trumpet. I think you know Bob.
Yeah,
Bob?
he did some time with 10th Avenue. That's
right. And Paul Edgerton, who is a Wooden Nickle alum.
Yep.
And Daryl Fernandez plays bass, and Vince Bartels on the drums. And then we had Bonnie for a while, but she moved to Arizona, as you know. So we've had a couple things with a young guy. I'm not sure what's happening, but we haven't really had anything even notwithstanding the virus situation, there weren't any really a whole lot of stuff. We had a few, and there's no festivals right now either, and it's kind of tough. So
yeah, if you have a chance to talk to Bob, let him know that I'm looking for him for an interview.
Bob Secoy?
Yeah.
Or Bob Ringwald?
I've already talked to Bob Ringwald, and no, Bob Secoy. He was
Definitely.
my roommate actually on 10th Avenue.
Oh, no kidding. He's one of my favorite humans, one of my favorite trumpet players. He's one of those guys that he and I just can kind of read each other's minds, and he's always just a delight to play with.
Oh yeah, he's a great player, and he's got some great stories.
Sure.
About being at Marriott's Great America, and
sure.
I'm sure he's told you that he was a college friend of Drew Carey's, or high school.
He did
friend.
Not tell me that. He
did
not drop that name.
They went to school together. They were best friends for a while in the early days.
No kidding. His dad used to chase Pat Yankee around the schoolyard in Lodi High School. He can tell you about that. They always joke about it, how she always talks about Bob being her illegitimate son. But that's a story he can tell.
Oh yeah, well that's true. Anyway, let him know because I've been trying to reach
Absolutely
him.
Will.
For some reason, I don't think I have although Bob could probably send me the connection for him. Cool, man. So I know that none of us are working now, and we haven't been working since March. I've done a couple online concerts for our local jazz club here, distanced, which just isn't. It's not bad. It's better than virtual concerts. I think we actually all get in a room at 6 feet apart and play. It makes it more difficult to communicate that way, but a lot of our fans, as you know, in this style of music, sorry for me talking here for a little bit, but a lot of our fans live and die by our music. It's their social setting, it's their relaxation, it's where their friends meet to listen to things. And I worry about our fan base, to be honest, during this time when it's not happening. So I started dropping slideshows on my other YouTube channel
Huh.
which is Daniel E. Zeilinger. Make sure you
Okay.
put the E in there, because otherwise you get an Austrian bodybuilder.
Okay.
But and I put on
And it's not you.
well, I wish you should see that body. There's some slideshows on there of Misbehaving Jazz Band, and there's a
Okay.
couple on there of 10th Avenue, and there's one of them I did Big Tiny Little's last two CDs, and
Oh,
so
fantastic. He's great. I knew him a little bit. He's great. Great guy.
and just incredibly strong player.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's some of the current stuff I'm doing at my Curly's Bar and Grill gig that we did every Friday up until March.
Uh-huh.
With that band. It's called the Cherry Willow Jazz Band, because it's on the corner, the bar's on the corner of Cherry and Willow in Long Beach. So,
Okay. Oh, Long Beach. My brother lives down there. I'll have to swing by next. Is that where you're living now?
oh, I live in Anaheim, in the shadow of Disneyland.
Okay. Okay.
I just say that because it's not really literally, but at 9:35 every night I do get the fireworks, quite loud.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. No, I'll have to check it out next time I'm in Long Beach. I go down and visit my brother.
Or give me a call and stuff.
Absolutely.
It's actually in the city of Signal Hill, which is
Okay.
just slightly east of Long Beach, but nobody knows Signal Hill. So anyway,
Those towns all blend together anyway, don't they?
I know. I'm down in Tourist Land, USA.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my interviews that lived here, and then said, "Oh, I know it was. It was John Brand."
Okay.
John Brand said I had to get out of there, and he moved back to Corvallis, I think it is. But
just from working the shows, or just being.
Well, he was at Disneyland for a long time with the Miners. Of course, John was the tuba player for the Jazz Miners, and no, just the traffic and the people in Southern California. You know, it's a wonderful place weather-wise, but you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. I was down there for a bit. I don't like Southern California.
In fact, my sister, who passed away in the last few years, unfortunately, but she lived in Carmichael.
Oh, okay.
And she used to make fun of the fact that there were still tractors going down the street, past the state capitol in Sacramento. I said, "Oh, that must be nice."
That's not entirely true, but I will say about Sacramento, it's a nice mix of. Because I've lived in the Valley my whole life, Modesto and Dinuba, and Sacramento is about as urban as I like. It's just urban enough, but you can still kind of get away. Anyway, I like this area, and there's a lot of good musicians here, in the up and down the Valley, and in Sacramento certainly lots of great musicians here.
Is downtown Fresno still all one-way streets?
I don't know. I don't think so, but
that used to drive me nuts when I was up there for a festival.
You know what? Yes, I think there's enough one-way streets to be super annoying. I know what you're talking about. Last time I was there, it was kind of hard to get anywhere.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Well, that's what can I say? You and I have traveled the same festival circuits for a long time, and
sure.
I was either with Misbehaving or 10th Avenue or Banjo Mania or one of those groups.
Now, I heard you mentioning on an earlier interview the Hot Frogs.
Yeah.
I'm curious when you were with them.
I was their last tuba player.
Okay.
In fact, I killed the band is what I tell people.
Yeah. We met them one time at the what used to be the Prune Festival up here in Yuba City. And they changed it to the Dried Plum Festival, but nobody was fooled. But they used to have trad bands there, and I think one of the first things that Wood and Nickle did, we got hired to play that, and we met the Hot Frogs, and that's when they had Joe Ashford and who was the trumpet player?
Mike Silverman.
Mike Silverman, who's wonderful, and then the banjo player was a curly-headed guy. What was
Matt Mooney?
Yes, Matt Mooney. Anyway, I thought it was really funny because we had just started the band, and Brady and I were kind of co-running the band. And Dottie took us aside and said, "You gotta treat these guys like they're completely disposable. Otherwise, they're just going to run all over you."
Oh, thanks, Dottie.
I know, which was kind of the opposite of how we had set the band up. But we thanked her profusely and went on our merry way. But that was a great band. I loved Mike. Joe was fantastic. A really good, fun band.
When Mike went through some health problems towards the end of the band's career, And
Right.
when that was happening, I actually switched over to cornet for a while,
Oh,
and Les Deutsch took over the tuba chair at a couple at I think it was the Watsonville Festival, and one maybe in Orange County,
okay.
and which was crazy because that was at the time when you could change uniforms and become 10th Avenue, and then you change uniforms back and become the Hot Frogs,
Yeah.
other than Charlie Clark and Les Deutsch, and so I actually did a few festivals playing back-to-back sets, switching from trumpet to tuba.
Oh boy. Oh, that's got to be hard on your chops.
Oh, well, that my face never recovered, can't you tell? So it's
That's good. Yeah, I've tried to play trumpet. I can't get a note out of a trumpet. I really would love to. But, like Dan Barrett, I don't know how he does it.
oh, he's
He picks
phenomenal
up that
cornet player.
cornet and plays. I remember the first time I heard him play the cornet, and I said, I really like his trombone playing. I was kind of disappointed that he wasn't going to play trombone. And I went, oh my God, that's some of the most beautiful cornet I've ever heard. So he's just a great musician.
I actually have him on an interview, I think, this Thursday.
Oh, no kidding.
So
Well,
no,
tell him I
he,
said howdy.
I will. He's the
Yeah.
reason I'm playing this style when I was in
Right.
college. So I owe him my career, and or the lack of it. I'm not sure how you
Yeah,
want to look at that.
don't blame that entirely on him now.
But
Oh,
yeah,
great. Well, great. I'm glad to hear that.
something that you don't know, and most people don't know, is he actually toyed with tenor sax for a while
Did he really?
in high school and college. Yeah, very
You know
little.
the guy. He. You know who Tom Baker is?
Sure.
Tom Baker and I'm really good friends with Simon Stribling, and I met Tom Baker. Tom Baker, who's from Escalon, which is
Right.
another town outside of Modesto.
And then
But
became an
he
international star in Australia. Yes.
became an internet playing trombone and trumpet and sax, and just the loosest. Just to watch that guy play. There's a great YouTube recording of Linger a While, and he's on there with Dan Barrett, and Tom Baker and some other guy. It was a European group, and I'm sorry, I don't know who it is, but just to watch Tom just play the trombone, just so lazy and sloppy, just hitting the exact right notes all the way. And he played the trumpet just, completely horrible form, I think, as far as I could tell. But my God, what a monster musician and a great tenor sax player.
Yeah, he
Great,
came to,
all those instruments.
he came to visit Orange County again back when I was still at Orange Coast College, and we were over at Brian Shaw's house, which I used to hang out all the time. His mother loved me because I would eat anything she would make, and everybody else was allergic to something. Anyway,
Right.
I was over there, and Tom came over and decided he was going to cook everybody a steak.
That's right. He
And
was a good cook.
that's the first time I really learned that you have to just sear it hard and leave the inside rare,
Yeah, right.
But
Right.
so Tom
That's right.
did.
He was a great cook. I heard
yeah.
he was a really great cook. Yeah.
So yeah, a great guy. We probably have a lot of friends in common like that we've met over the years.
I'm sure we do. You mentioned Charlie Clark, and I remember him from. I hadn't thought of him in a while. From Ed's band. And how do you know how Ed Zimbrick's doing?
He passed away.
Oh, he did. Okay, I'm sorry.
About 2 years ago, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
But
wonderful player, good writer.
Well, and put his money where his mouth is.
And he put his money where his mouth is.
And he had a lot of money.
He employed some very good friends of mine, which was good. Was good. So.
But it's so funny. A lot of people don't realize that he was actually playing as a rock and roll trombone player for a long time around Huntington Beach.
Oh, no kidding.
Which is, in fact, where he met Rosita, his first wife. She was working at Beach Music in Huntington Beach.
Huh.
And he met her there. His and my paths crossed several times without us knowing it. We could have walked past each other in our younger years. But I learned a lot from that man, a whole lot. Not only about his phenomenal arranging ear and what he did, but I also learned don't mention anything to him unless you wanted an arrangement of it for the band.
Really?
Because Al Weeb, which was one of our guitar players, mentioned one day offhand that he played a lot of acid rock and stuff. And the next day, Ed came to the rehearsal with charts on Live and Let Die and different things. And he was that fast as an arranger. you know.
Yeah, yeah. I heard he was really prolific arranger. Did you guys did a lot of reading though, right? Did you like that or?
Oh, I didn't mind it. You know, I came out of the school system, and
Right, me
I
too.
was a big band trumpet reader, and I studied to teach and all that good kind of stuff. But Joe Ashworth hated it.
Yeah, yeah.
When he was doing 10th Avenue, I used to write some things and bring him every so often, and I would fully articulate everything, you know, in
Right.
my manuscript. And Joe one day
Right, right.
turned to me angrily, and he said, "Dan, this just screws up my thinking when I have to
I know.
look at all this stuff, and
I know.
and you just don't need to do that, you know."
It's hard to do both well, I got to say. It's hard to I play with a Steely Dan cover band up here.
I saw that, yeah.
And the trumpet player used to play in Reno and did all the shows and stuff. And he's just a demon about articulating correctly. And I never was that good at that. So it's been a really good learning experience for me to be more precise in my reading. Because like I say, I just move till I get to a good note and then stop. But it's made me a much more precise player in terms of that sort of stuff. But it is a whole different way of thinking.
Oh yeah, I was talking to Matt Johnson.
Yeah, I know Matt Johnson.
I was talking to Matt about his time with Swing Savant.
Yes.
And he said they
What
were
a
at
great band.
they were at a festival. He thought maybe Mammoth Lakes or something, and they were fumbling looking for a chart. And somebody in the audience yelled, "Forget the chart, just play!" And he said Tom Kubas walked up to the mic and said, "We play music because we read music because we can." And then stepped.
Yeah, exactly. Kubas, I tell you, I heard you talking about Tom Kubas on some other interviews, and I didn't realize he had such a trad background. I know he was always very comfortable up here with the Swing Savant because they were doing the thing for a while. But I know in high school and college, his charts were always, he'd do these, you know, these guys who write these great big 15-page charts that they don't really swing, but his stuff always, him and the who's the piano player that played with them? Bob Florence.
Okay.
Another one. Kubas and Florence always had great charts, but you could tell that they were musicians and that they knew what the point of playing music was. You know.
Yeah, Tom has been a staple in the college books now.
No, his stuff is
maybe
fantastic.
about 20 years or so.
Yeah.
When I walked into Orange Coast College in 1972, he was on the band.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so
and a hell of a player too.
Now, about his trad background is really something interesting. Let's see if I can get this right now. Bill Dendel, Tom Kubas, a couple of other people, all did Ted Mack's Amateur Hour.
Oh, no kidding. I knew that Bill had done it.
And Tom Kubas went on with a soprano sax and played, I think it was something like I Got Rhythm or maybe Meilenberg Joys or something. He went on and did his George. He was mentored by George Probert.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In the early days. And Tom, if you watch Tom play soprano, he still looks just like George. Comes down and looks over his glasses. And, you know.
Right.
So that's where Tom got sunk his teeth into trad jazz first, and then became a modernist later.
Yeah, but still, and I have a theory about. I always talk about. I'm a big proponent of developing youth, and I think that trad jazz is a link in the musical history that is completely eliminated from schools. You go from Sousa marches to John Coltrane transcriptions, you know, and I've always thought that trad should be in there, even if you don't end up playing it. It's still it's a necessary stepping stone, and it informs your later playing. If you want to do more modern jazz, if that's what blows your skirt up, I say go for it. But trad is where you learn about melody and basic harmony and stuff like that, and you learn how to compose a solo rather than just run a bunch of changes, you know.
Yes, you actually learn how to solo as opposed to just running a pentatonic scale.
Exactly.
And I actually teach off of lead sheets in my jazz class. We'll do big band arrangements, and I pass those out. But I make everybody, and I explain to them how lead sheets work. We were talking about what kids get from jazz camps, and part of what they get from jazz camps is how to run a gig. Because you make them lead, them do the announcements, and you make them pick the tunes. And
Right.
the other thing that people don't teach for any musician is the business end.
Right. Right.
Now, there are a
No,
few programs.
that's important.
When Tom was at Golden West College teaching, one of the classes that was there was called Music as a Business,
Uh,
and invaluable. Our school system doesn't do enough of that.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. I wish they would, but they don't. So it's a good thing that there's things like the camps, and you doing your sort of extracurricular stuff outside of your curriculum to get the kids to read lead sheets. Because I think if you want to play at any level, even if you don't want to make a living out of it, you know, I'm not a full-time musician, but I get a lot of joy out of it. But you need to be able to read a lead sheet so that you can jump in with guys you've never heard of before and never played with. That's just a basic thing, and they don't teach that.
And not
they
only
really
that,
should.
it forces you into transposition.
Yes.
If you're handing out concert lead sheets, and that's really important, obviously, and not only for jazz musicians, but even for classical musicians.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, a lot of those early arrangements and orchestrations and things were done in nebulous keys because for a long time instruments weren't. In other words, you had trumpets in E flat and A and F, and you never know what you're going to get in front of you.
Some of that might be attributable to transcriptions of poor recordings. But
actually, you know, Brad Roth kind of talks about when he was listening to Eddie Peabody that that the records were not necessarily always on pitch. But one of the interesting things Brad would do when I was playing with him all the time, because he and I worked quite a bit as a duo on top of everything else.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is he told me once that Eddie Peabody used to crank his banjo up a full step when he recorded in order to get that snappy crack out of it that he got.
Huh.
And so we would get on stage at times and Brad would tune up a full step, which is, of course, no fun for tuba players.
No. That's why. Well, I hope he at least warned you that he was.
On occasion. The jazz miners got back at him once. I've got to tell you this story. They were at Disneyland playing, and during the break, Rusty had snuck back on stage and tuned Brad's banjo up a full step without telling him. And then when the band came back on stage, they played the first tune. I think it was Chic. Everybody played it up a full step.
Because they knew he'd done it.
And then, no, just that Brad had no idea that that his banjo was changed.
Oh, they just figured he just done an audible and everybody followed it.
They thought it was no. Everybody knew the prank except for Brad.
Oh, okay.
So everybody played it up a step.
Gotcha.
Until the second song.
Okay.
Where the band played it in the regular key, and Brad said it was like a nightmare. It was like a bad dream. He hit a chord and looked at his hand. And then he looked up John Brand's hand on the string bass, and he looked over at the piano player, and they were all right. And then tried it again. He said it was. Isn't that cruel?
That's classic. I love that. That's a great story. I like Brad. Brad's a great guy. I saw your interview with him. He's a good cat.
He is a good cat.
Nice. Yeah.
In fact, you find out that a lot of I think majority of the guys in this style of music are kind and giving and sharing, and you know, unlike say, for example, the lead trumpet player world in big bands.
Yes, no question. Most people I've met have been charming and nice and become good friends like you. Some great players that I'm privileged to call friends, and people who know my name without me having to tell them, and that's kind of cool.
Well,
it's a great scene.
One of the things I talked to, I think it was Howard Alden about, was you find out that the guys who are the very best in their field, the Evan Christophers and Howard Aldens and Brad Roths, and they also are the nicest people because they have nothing to prove.
They're not trying to prove anything. I've always thought that. Absolutely.
And speaking of which, Bob, I not only do I prize your friendship, but I've always admired your playing and the things you've done. And I think we're probably going to wrap up the interview here. Is there anything I would like to give you the chance, as I do with all my interviews, give you the chance to tell people where they can find your music or hear you?
I saw that about the plugs, and so I had these made a couple years ago when I went to Sun Valley. This is a USB stick made out of wood, with a wooden nickel jazz band, complete recordings. Unfortunately, for most of the audience, this actually has all 4 of our CDs and a very rare cassette that was digitized and put on here. Unfortunately, I did this for an audience that doesn't know what to do with it. So if somebody wants to buy one.
You're absolutely right. It's like with some of the people I'm trying to get to do Zoom.
Yeah, well, this is very clever. Scott Anthony gave me one that he had with his group, and I thought it was so clever. But again, probably too clever by half. But I tell people, get your grandkids to help you put it on your computer if you want. But
It's a wonderful idea. I hadn't thought of that myself, and now I'm going to steal it.
Uh-oh. Well, I stole it from Scott Anthony.
I've interviewed Scott too, by the way.
Oh, you have? Good.
I
like Scott.
I
like that band. I've got to play with Bob Schultz and Leon Oakley and Pat Yankee and Robert Young. I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Through with Scott Anthony, and I always enjoy it. It's always a delight to play with, especially Schultz and Leon Oakley, and they're both such great guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to get everybody you just mentioned. So
good.
One of the points of this was to archive what we do.
Yeah.
And the people that do it. So thank you again.
Hey, I really appreciate being asked, and I'll keep watching. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great thing for the music.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for watching Trad Jazz Today. Dan shows new interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure to check out the archive of past shows, and please give us a thumbs up when you subscribe to the channel. Bye.